Well, welcome back to Imperfect, the heart-centered leadership podcast. I'm still pinching myself that we're on season 5. And you'll notice for September and October, we've been doing flashback Fridays to go back and highlight some of the guests that we've had. And we've had comments and some of the most downloaded. And good things are always worth repeating. But I wore this shirt today because I'm interviewing an amazing physician, Diana Londoño. I'm hoping I pronunciated correctly, Diana. And I love her story, which I'm going to have her tell you about in a minute. But I think this shirt represents the theme of today's podcast. We're talking about emotional intelligence, emotional resilience. And this is life. Like, life is not linear. I saw this in my closet today and I was like, this is the shirt that I'm going to wear today to represent our conversation. So I'm delighted to have you here. You have a remarkable story. And I was a bit burnt out this summer. And I came back and I said to my team, I'm taking 2 months off the podcast, which I've not done in 5 seasons. We go dark after we do 11 months to recreate, get creative. And this year I thought, what do I always tell myself? Because I come from a case management background, so that med rehab. So we have some alignment there. But it's okay to take a break. And it really doesn't matter when we choose to come back or if we choose to come back. And I just want to lay that as our foundation of our conversation today. So share with our listeners, and we're proud to tell our listeners and even to you today, in season 4, we were in 65 countries at the beginning of the season, Diana. And we finished season 4 and we're now in 82. And we are so proud. And we know our message is resonating with people because we're all about heart-centered leadership and the messiness of life and leadership and the interconnectedness of both. So tell our listeners a little bit about your story because it's so heartfelt and I'm so happy that you are landing in the space that you are. So I'm handing the mic over to you.
Well, first of all, Deb, I couldn't love more your whole intro. I mean, it's amazing because before we started, I said, I love your shirt. And then you say, well, hold on a second. There's a story behind it. And there always is. And, that's the same way I sort of choose my clothes. I'm like, what do I feel today? What am I feeling? What color? I kind of go by the color. And then I said, what am I feeling? Or what's the attitude I'm feeling? And that's what I'll wear as well. So I kind of like that you did that. And it absolutely points to, yes, life is messy and it's not a linear and it's up and down and squirrely and up and down. And that's exactly what it is. And within that, there's so much pleasure and pain. And that's life. It's not just fun, pleasure. There's both. And there's a polarity. And that I also like the color, the black and the white, the contrast. I mean, there's contrast to life. And that's what makes life rich and beautiful is the contrast. If you only have fun all day, you won't know what not having fun is. I mean, you have to have that contrast. So I just love not only the pattern, but the colors that it represents. And really, really thank you just for having me here. I mean, it's such an honor. I'm so humbled, with such reach that you have for so many people, so many countries that are resonating with this message, which is so important. And that's why we connected. It's about love. And, I really say always that my religion is love. And I really want to really, be that and bring that love and that hope and everything I do, not just as my role as a physician, which it really is a healer and a teacher, but bring that love into it, bring the humanity in it. And, somebody just asked me earlier, I had a podcast and said, how do we bring back humanity? And I said, I don't think we bring it back. I think we become that. Really how Gandhi said, be the change you want to be. We want to be that humanity, for ourselves and for others. We want to give ourselves, like you said, that rest for ourselves before we can give. If we don't give ourselves rest, compassion, love, you can't give that to anybody else. So it is essential, the things that you started with, about the messiness of life, about being heart-centered, and about permission to give yourself rest. It is needed. It's not even an option. It is mandatory to take that rest for creativity, take the rest to recharge, refuel. And if you're not doing that, at some point you're just going to run out of steam. You're going to crash and burn. You're going to be in burnout. So these are essential things that I just love that you just started like right off the bat coming down. It's really important.
You know what it is. And I think it's a nice lead into your story, and I don't want to say your story. We stopped doing that in season 4 because I want to give the honor and privilege to the person who's lived it. So give us a little overview of what you became and what you chose to be now.
Well, yeah, that's a long story. But I mean, if we go from the beginning, I'm originally from Mexico City. My last name in Londoño is Colombian. My husband's Colombian, so we're different. Colombians and Mexicans are different. But I was born in Mexico City. I came to the United States when I was 12. My parents separated and I came here. I did most of my schooling in the Los Angeles area. And I went to UCLA for medical school, so I did my training there. And then I finished with 6 years of residency in urology. Urology is a surgical specialty that deals with anything where the urine passes and all the sexual organs and genitals. So it really is very comprehensive and really, really fulfilling specialty to me. I'm proud to be one of the 10% of women in the US, but it's very much similar in other countries and probably less in other countries, especially. Of all the women who are urologists, again, in the US is 10%. So this is something I'm proud of because we're the unicorns and we're the ones that really, have to have that voice and stay ourselves, not change, because we're the 10%, but really stand fully in our power, in our voice, in our uniqueness to bring about that part of us that makes, kind of life and care different and just, important. So everybody has their place. We don't want to minimize, other people's voices, but we want to stand in our voice proudly and strongly. So I'm a urologist, like I said, as a day job. I'm also, very involved in wellness and precision, especially burnout, because it's real. And it's a pandemic for anybody in any field, whether you're a teacher, whether you are in the C-suite. I mean, this is a real problem of burnout and chronic stress. But for physicians, it really matters because we're all patients. And 65% of my colleagues are in burnout, 25% are, anxious and depressed, 13% are, having suicidal thoughts. And in the US, but also globally, 1 in 400 every year are dying by suicide every single year. That's very, very tragic. And it's tragic not only when that happens, but all the things that happen leading up to it and the care that you don't get as a patient, the loss in the family, the disconnection on their own family unit. So the loss is really significant and it really impacts all of us. Again, we're all patients. I just finished with 4 weeks of a really severe pelvic infection and rectal infection from a minor procedure, an IUD, and it's very rare. It's like less than 1%, but, it happened. And, not just going through it because I knew it all along and I've been saying it, how the system's broken. And the system means all of us and insurance and pharma and everything. But it really matters when you're a patient, what can happen, the care you get or you don't get, the compassion you get or you don't get, the lack of love and kindness or the whole bout that you get. I mean, you get both of it. So those things really matter because we're all going to be patients. We are patients. Mm-hmm. Our kids, our grandkids, our neighbor, it really matters. So I'm passionate because we're all patients. I'm passionate because we need to really understand this is important. And that, again, we have to go back to the basics. Taking care of our own needs is not narcissistic. It is not selfish. To know our worth, to take care of ourselves, to really realize, we can be living in joy, but it may take some skills we have to learn. And that may be boundaries, and that may be, a lot of mindset shifts. But this work is important because we got to remember who we are at the core of all of it. We are love, we're light, we're joy. We're not anger, we're not sadness, we're not division and fear. That's not our real true role as a human being. So hopefully we can all remember our true essence, and that's really love.
Absolutely. And I got to give a shout out to Tom Dahlberg because he connects me with a lot of amazing people, and that's how we connected in the big pool of LinkedIn. And I love your energy. I'm a level 3 Reiki. I see you're a Reiki master. So seeing your, interconnection of Western medicine and what I call complementary therapies, that just brought me to a whole other level for this conversation. So here's my first leadership question.
Yes.
How has your experience with burnout shaped the way you approach your leadership now in self-care, in your new role, especially when you're wearing your life coach to help other physicians?
I think we're always, like leaders. I mean, this is a great question. Like, are we born? Are we made? That is like the lifelong question. And, I think you also asked me some questions before, preparing for this. Like, what are three words that come to mind with leadership? But it really is about like vision. You have to have vision. You have to have humility, and you really have to have love. So I think those things never really change. I mean, I have to have a vision of where I'm going, even where I don't truly know where I'm going. Like, I always have a deep knowing that things will be okay, even when I feel lost and broken and heartbroken and physically ill from stress. I always know it's going to be okay. There is this faith that, again, it's not religious, it's just a spiritual knowing that things will be well. And I have this deep seated knowing of it. And it really is about like love and like really tapping into love in those dark times, because we all have them, whether again, we're sick, whether we are facing financial problems, whether relationship problems, like we have to tap into that. And that's really within ourselves. So when you tap into that, I think everything sort of changes the outlook, and even throughout the pain and even in the great grief and all these emotions we're having. So I think it's important to tap into that essential frequency, which is love.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay, my second question has permanent residency on this show. I've asked it from my first guest, and we've interviewed over 300 people. What imperfections do you bring to your heart-centered leadership?
Just my humility that we're human, that we have a rainbow of emotions, a rainbow of things that, are imperfect. We're not perfect human beings. And when we embrace that and we realize we're imperfect, and that's okay, we're never going to have perfection. And we can have that compassion for ourselves and also like a sense of humor about it all. That's really important. I think, also as a physician, I deal with a lot of serious things, and I do. But I also bring a lot of humor and levity to it because, we kind of laugh a little bit, at ourselves sometimes, even the things we do or don't do. And, even things that happen to us. I mean, even when I was really sick, I was still kind of joking with the text and, with the person about things that were happening, because what else I'm going to do? I mean, yes, I feel awful, but I'm going to laugh a little bit and sort of interrupt that pattern, as we start spiraling down into the abyss of, everything being terrible. Like we got to interrupt the pattern, and laughter is a great way. And just realizing like self-compassion and that we're not perfect. So when you let that go, the idea, then things are a lot smoother.
I always invite people to join me in the land of imperfection. And there's a cliche I remember hearing as a kid that laughter is the best medicine.
It is. Absolutely. I mean, and there are actually studies. There's studies that when either you listen to things, a show or something that is funny or laugh, I mean, actually you're releasing endorphins, you're releasing all these happy hormones when you laugh. It's really at a molecular level, scientific level, there's changes happening in your body. And so doing that, listening to music that is uplifting, that helps with pain control, pre, post-op. We've seen that in studies. You don't need the studies, but people that want studies, they're out there showing the power of, again, changing that frequency and listening to things that are uplifting or just laughing. And that is really important because it will change your physiology. It will change how you heal or how you don't heal or like your illness. So it's really is the best medicine. And you've got to add that to your tool of things to do.
Absolutely. Okay, third question. In what ways do you encourage heart-centered practices like vulnerability, empathy, and authenticity into your coaching sessions with other physicians?
Yeah, those are like my favorite words probably. But, I think you have to be, you have to be it. Even with kids, like you want to try to teach your kids to be confident. But if you're not confident, it's like you can't really teach it. Yes, you can kind of lecture them about it, but what's important is to be it. You got to be confident and then learn from that. And the same thing sort of with coaching or anything you want to do. You've got to live those principles. You've got to live that authenticity to then other people to truly like believe it, buy into it, and see it. So if you're not doing that and living that, it's very challenging to teach that or to promote it because you got to be it. And again, if you're not it, then that's not authentic. Then you're just sort of like being fake. And people always say, "Oh, you're so authentic, you're so raw." I'm like, I just say what it is. I mean, I just say what's out here. It's like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I definitely put boundaries and I try to protect myself at the same time. But it's just, like that's just it is what it is. And that is the beautiful thing about human beings. It's like that's how people connect. When you are vulnerable, when you say your struggle, when you say you're not perfect, when you say like you had a mom fail, that's authentic because we all have the same situation. And so we're just so afraid not to be perfect. So then we try to put up this facade that something's perfect. Like there's nothing perfect. Like, like there's a lot of things we fail at or we don't get 100% because we never will. And I think if you're going to be perfect, then you probably shouldn't be in this earth because you're done with all your growth. I mean, why are you here if you're perfect? Like, what are you doing? The whole point of being on earth is to grow, to learn lessons. And if you're not doing that, then like, why are you here? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, good answer. Okay, my last leadership question. Share with us how you balance the intellectual demands of your medical expertise with the emotional and relational aspects of leadership, especially if you're guiding other physicians through their own challenges.
I think you have to do both. Just to do one intellectual and not do the feeling, it's not really going to work. Now, however, physicians are very disconnected. I mean, many people, but, we're disconnected our brain from our body. We don't even know what we're feeling. When you ask somebody, how are you? They start telling you not how they feel, but it's like everything else they're doing or, like this left brain. So we have to connect with our body and realize we have a body, realize we have feelings. And, that has sort of been beat out of us because we have to be robots. We have to be very stoic. And that's just nonsense. We are human beings and we feel and we're not human doings. So when we connect with that, when we give permission to physicians, to colleagues, to patients also, to feel their feelings, to be okay feeling whatever it is, shame, anger, frustration, happiness, joy, ecstasy, whatever it is, it's okay to feel. And it's an emotion, it's energy in motion. The Reiki, you're just moving. You want to move it out of the body. And as a Reiki practitioner, and I do pranic healing as well, we kind of move that energy because when it gets stuck in our bodies, then it causes diseases. So, if we understand the energetic component of things, and, Western medicine doesn't teach that, but everything physical starts energetically. And this is all quantum physics anyway. But, if we start with the blockages energetically, they will manifest physically. So we need to understand that an emotion that gets stuck here or here is going to give you a stress ulcer because your anger resides here in this middle part, in that energy center. And then that's going to give you a stress ulcer. If you keep your grief, your trauma, your pelvis, that's going to give you all the things people come to me as a urologist: frequency, urgency, pelvic pain. It's energetic, then manifesting into physical. So we have to understand everything's energy. I didn't say that. It was Einstein. So when we kind of tap into that and understand a little better, I think healing, I think taking care of people as a coach, as a physician, it's much better. It's much more durable than just say superficial in this sort of mind swap coaching scenario because it doesn't work as well.
Absolutely. I love the alignment. And it's like you say, you can ask someone how they're doing, and then you hear about all the extrinsic things going on in their life, and the intrinsic isn't even, it's absent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just doctors, but
it's everybody.
It's everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. We're worse, probably. We're a little more challenging there, but it's everybody. Say, how are you? And then they just tell you, I went here. I'm like, no. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Like feeling like, not all the to-do list that you have to do. It's like, how are you? So.
Well, and it's similar because I'm also a yoga teacher, and I'm not teaching right now. I'm just a student. But when you're tapped in and connected to your body, you can feel where all the blockages are, and you can't do things as well as you did before. And it's like you said, it's okay to have that renewal of learning. It's when you stop. So I always, when I go into someone new, their yoga class, and they're like, you're a teacher? And I said, yep, but I'm your student. I'm just, I'm coming back to the basics. And it's a nice place to be because you're in that room with other people and it has nothing to do with the mat. It's like you talked about earlier. It's setting that intention. It's having that clarity. It's getting out of your head and into your body. and just knowing and trusting. And that has a lot of different spaces in our lives and our leadership. Okay, I'm going to switch to my Fab Four. These are just four fun questions for our listeners to get to know Diana on the fun personal side. What's one practical tip that you would give our listeners today to embrace heart-centered leadership into their daily life?
You have to start with time for yourself where you schedule it. It's not even like optional. It has to be scheduled where you have a time every day or whatever you like to call it, whether it's prayer, meditation, journaling, quiet time, breathing time, whatever you want to call it. You need that, because if you don't start your day with that time, which is going to put you in like a rest and digest, parasympathetic, slow down, you can't be in a love-centered anything, because you're going to be in a stress state. And stress, and curiosity and love, like they don't coexist. It's like they're repelling each other. So you cannot be love-centered anything when you are in fight or flight. So if you don't cultivate that time for yourself, there's not going to be any love-centered anything. So start with the basics. Start with scheduling that time every day, because it's work. And it's work to be love-centered. It doesn't just naturally happen. You have to do the work. So make that a priority. Schedule that every single day.
Great advice. Okay, second question. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be?
Theme song for leadership. Oh, I really like this song that I was listening to a lot, like Diamonds, like you're bright like diamonds. It's really beautiful, because I think we all are diamonds. We're like, there are diamonds in the sky. We're saying like we're made of stardust. We're like, we are carbon and all the atoms from the stars of the galaxies. And when we realize that about ourselves, that we are, all interconnected. What I do affects you, what you do affects me. And we're all interconnected. And we're diamonds. We're unique and beautiful and bright, and we're light. I think that's really important in leadership. We have to understand that interconnectedness. And it's not just me leading people. It's like, I need to know the people. I need to know what matters to them. I need to understand them. And I also have to go, back to, so we talked about flexibility, humility, and being curious and a student. But yeah, like we should kind of shine bright like a diamond, and it's for both of us.
Okay, so we're going with Rihanna's song. That's a great song.
It's a very good song. You gotta put it through.
Okay, third question. What would be your summary today of a key takeaway or lesson from our discussion for our listeners?
Stay curious, stay humble. Like that's really critical as a leader. Those are very important qualities. Like if you lead with ego, if you lead with all these other things, they're the greatest leaders. You can look in history. I mean, let's look at history, which we never do, but MLK and Gandhi, I mean, they led with humility. They led with love. They didn't lead with ego, that they were always students, they were always learning. So those are really important lessons as a leader.
Absolutely. So before we close out the show with my last question, I want to say I had one of the first female neurosurgeons on the podcast, Dr. Katrina Furlick, just outstanding human being. And she landed up leaving surgery as well, even though she fought so hard to get there as a female surgeon, is now an entrepreneur, married another neurosurgeon who also left. And she left such a special place in my heart because she shared her story just like you, and much like you are to the discipline of urology, she was to neurosurgery. So I'm always impacted and kind of taken back in awe when I meet women who've kind of fought the good fight, but got to that level of burnout where they thought, okay, something's going to change, and they actually do something about it. So just know that I'm putting you in that same arena as Katrina, because we had such a great chat. She wrote a phenomenal book called Another Day in the Frontal Lobe, and again, shared her stories. And I think that's how we become better people, is when we open our hearts and we share our vulnerability, not the good, but the bad and the indifferent. And I just want to say it was such a pleasure to finally see you today and meet you outside of our virtual world that we all kind of live in. And just keep leading with your heart, because you're setting such a great example for so many, especially your little girls.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's so kind. I got like chills. Both we said that, and we talked about the frontal lobe, the book, because this is so important. Yeah, that's a message for also, I want to say for physicians, if you are one, you know, there's so many choices. We have so many skills. Like, don't feel like that's the only way to do. There's so many things you can do with your skills. Write, consult, speak, lead, teach other people. You can do so much stuff that don't think that you're stuck, that there's no way out, because you are so important. You matter. And you matter to your children and to your family and to the community, to the world with your gifts. And whatever pain you're facing, like you're anxious, you're thinking of suicide, know that that will be a catalyst for your growth, and that will be used to help other people. But you gotta like go through it. And so get help, get support, reach out to anybody, pastor, friend, coach, colleague, anybody. Like there's so many resources that you can really just realize there's hope. There's always hope. And I have the scars of burnout, and I'm not saying like to show it up, but to see that there is a different way through it, and it can be done. But you gotta look inside yourself, truly, truly, and realize like the light's within you, the courage is within you. And not to be cheesy, but like the song "Hero" by Mariah Carey, when you're going through a hard time, realize that there is that hero, there is that light within inside of you, and just think deep, get quiet, so you can listen to the answers. Ask the universe, whatever power you believe in, to help you find that courage and the strength to get out of the darkness.
Absolutely. And I have a niece right now in Tennessee doing her clinical residency and doing all the different disciplines. And I will be sending her this episode for sure. I know she listens when she can, but I'm going to make sure that she listens and hear your words. Because I always say to other younger physicians, this person is just a little farther down the road and she doesn't want to share her knowledge with you. I want you to listen to her wisdom. There's a very big difference. Mm-hmm. So thank you for your time today, and glad our paths connected. I'm going to have you finish the show by finishing this sentence for me. Heart-centered leadership is
love. Just love. I mean, there's nothing more than love. It's obvious that it's heart-centered, but it's like love for yourself, love for the others, love for humanity, love for the stones, the flowers, the birds. It's just love, and it's a frequency. And we've got to get rid of all these layers of other stuff on top of us that is clouding our light, and realize it's just love. It's a frequency, and it's within ourselves.